welcome to another interview that I'm excited to have here with Tato Bigio, the co-founder and CEO of UBQ Materials. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
All right, so the reason why I wanted to speak to you is I've seen a lot of your content, a lot of press actually over many years of what your product does. So maybe you can kind of explain it a little bit about what is UBQ and why do you take something that seems so crazy and so simplify it?
Yeah, the UBQ has developed a truly revolutionary technology that never existed before. We can take the entire waste that you have in your bag in your house, all of it, not only the plastics, all of it. The cucumbers, the banana peels, the salad leftover, the soup, and the pizza, and the box of the pizza, and the paper, and the diapers, all of it together with the mixed plastics that are embedded in that waste, and convert all these materials together into one homogeneous, consistent thermoplastic material, meaning that we can produce a new plastic that never existed before, which is green, entirely made out of waste, as opposed to conventional plastics that are entirely made out of oil.
Okay, so that sounds hard to believe. So anything, so that includes aluminum, anything literally anything that's in my trash right now, or in any recycling bin, you take it and then you go ahead and you make it into reusable material.
Correct. When we supply our material, our UBQ thermoplastic material to the plastic industry, we would remove metals and minerals because they are abrasive to those machines. If we would do it for construction purposes, we can leave those materials inside. So we have the potential to use 100% or to remove metals and minerals and then return them back to the recyclers because these are high value materials.
Right.
So at the end of the day, we're taking the vast majority of the waste and the valuables like metals and minerals, returning them. So it's really 100%.
Do you even make revenue from like that aluminum that you're able to pull out?
Yes.
What do you use, magnets or how do you pull it?
You pull it, aluminum, you cannot use magnets because it's not ferrous. So you use a different technology, which is called the eddy current technology, standard. We invented it, and it helps you keep out the non-ferrous metals. So you use magnets for ferrous and the eddy currents for non-ferrous.
So, I mean, my trash can, let's say, can be one community's can be very different from someone else's. So how do you ensure that the product that you produce for them to be reused,
right,
that there's a consistency or an understanding of it? If, from even different towns, different households, different cities, different communities, the trash looks very, very different. So how do you ensure that it comes out into the same product that can then be reused?
The first element to consider when you're talking about homogeneity is that we're not taking your bag from your house. We're taking all the bags from all the houses in the city via the transfer station, the place where typically all these waste collectors that come early in the morning will dump it in order to take it there to landfills. When you have the sum of all the waste of a big community, for example, a big city like Sydney, New York, Tel Aviv, Amsterdam, you will find that in the big numbers, the statistics are very consistent.
Right.
Okay? Not this day in your house and that other day in your house, but the statistic. Okay?
Right.
Now, it is true that at the end of the day, that statistic can shift. And if it shifts consistently or significantly at the factory, we have the possibility to add on organic matter or any stream to balance out.
Perfect, got it.
But that stream is also a waste stream that is separated, okay, that we can control and then create exactly the formulation that we need. But it is really surprising that in the statistic of the big numbers, the waste consistency is very, very, very standard.
Right, the law of large numbers. Awesome. So we'll get back to the business and how it works, but maybe you could take us at how it started. So tell us about your background, where you're from. You can tell us about your offices we're sitting, and obviously tell us a little bit about how UBQ came to be. How did you end up co-founding it? How does one come up with such an idea that seems so inconceivable, yet so simple when you say it?
There is a saying that Professor Oded Shosayev, who is one of the brains that helped us develop this technology, he's the head of the nanobiotechnology department in the Hebrew University and a very well-known scientist. He said to us that if a student would have come to him to make his doctorate, and tell him I will use household waste to convert it into one thermoplastic material that can abide to industry standard, he said I would throw him out of the university. If that guy would have come, well, that guy were a group of people that, including me, that came to talk to him because we found that there was a certain merit in the fact that waste, even though, as you said, is very heterogeneous, its composition at the level of organics and plastics is quite standard. Typically, waste is about 80 to 85% organics. Organics is paper, cardboard, and food residues and garden trimmings. And the balance is plastics, mixed plastics. I'm taking out the metals and the minerals because we will remove them, and they are about 3 to 4%, not a big thing, okay? So that is plus minus. And if we go to the organics, not to the plastics, like the recyclers typically do. They take only the plastics, separate them, clean them, and then recycle it back to what they were before, polypropylene into polypropylene, polyethylene into polyethylene. We said, no, let's take the organic part, which is the mass of the waste, 85% of it, okay? The big pie of the pizza of the waste, and take that and do organic chemistry to turn it into a thermoplastic. And since nature has been very favorable in terms of having us organic matter created with very clear structures, if we know those structures, then we can combine them and create a new matrix, a new type of material.
Right.
And that was the idea behind it. When we spoke about it with him, he said, this is absolutely something super interesting, and we should pursue it. And that is how UBQ came to life.
And did you work with that professor?
Yes.
And all right, terrific. So you guys decided, okay, we have this idea. It seems feasible.
Yeah.
So then what? You went to raise money to go see if you can maybe research and develop it?
Yes.
Talk through the business, the fundraising, and your partners that help you go from an idea, right, that on paper might sound good, but how to bring it into execution.
Right. The seed money, the angel money, is what enabled us to start an operation. With that, we could build a prototype that showed the case of the potential technology, and then very soon I started looking for strategic investors. People that not only are looking for the return on investment on a very interesting development, but people that understand the market, understand the commodity market of plastics. And in other words, I was looking for a strategic partner. And sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you don't, and you find the right person. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 rounds to find the right investor. In our case, I have to say that we were lucky also, and we choose correctly. Today, our chairman and co-CEO is that guy that 10 years ago became our strategic partner, and since then he has been supporting very much this technology. And the reason is that every time we went to scale the company and went through developments that showed that the technology was being successful, he retained his position, and therefore our cap table was very simple, and that enabled us also to work more comfortably in focusing on the development of the technology and less on capital markets, even though we always had to taste the water, always, before anyone, including our strategic investors, would put the additional money we required.
How much have you raised so far?
So look, in the last 2 years, I will talk about it, is we had a very big funding 2 years ago from probably the most prominent equity fund in the world, TPG Climate. And that capital funding included a few other established investors from the UK and the United States, $170 million.
Mm-hmm.
And only 3 months ago, we raised an additional $70 million on a capital funding led by Eden Capital Partners that that is a very prominent group also in the East Coast of the United States.
How much, as you scale and grow, so let's say the last 70 million you raised a few months ago, how much more is there additional value to the partnership other than the money, of course, to scale? And we're talking manufacturing, we'll get to that. Other than the money, what kind of partnership comes when you're already have raised 170 million, raised another 70? Or is it just pure about just capital and terms?
It's look, the we're working on a different space than the typical space. High-tech companies in Israel work in the digital space. We're in the physical space. We need to build machines that are very costly and very precise. Typically, we work with very, very prominent suppliers, German, Austrian, from the Netherlands, okay, also from the US, in order to create a very robust process technology that enable us really to take waste and convert it into a plastic that will end up being a plastic product. It's just that it's made out of household waste and not from oil. And that process is complicated, and you need to have really the best suppliers because you need also their support, their service. If you need to do some changes, again, this is a development technology. So we ended up having a very well-established process line here in the south of Israel, where we began our R&D in Kibbutz Elim. We have an industrial plant, which is adjacent to a landfill. That is why we choose that place. We had an industrial site, we had a landfill, and we could at the beginning play with the waste in order to develop the technology. Today, of course, the waste is coming all over from Tel Aviv, and we are producing their UBQ material to export to other places, also to supply in Israel. So once we had that working and the process line balanced correctly and just producing UBQ constantly, we decided that we will expand, and we needed a lot of capital in order to create that expansion. And now, as I was telling you before, we're commissioning a plant that is 15 times bigger than the Israeli one in the Netherlands, in the south of the Netherlands, that will supply 80,000 tons of UBQ material to the European market and to other markets, while we continue developing, establishing new plants in other places of the world, including, of course, the United States.
So before we get to the expansion in Netherlands and the United States, you said that your first factory was in southern Israel. So from the Hamas atrocities, massacre, were you guys affected in any way?
Yeah, well, we actually choose the southern region in a way also because we thought that we wanted to be involved in developing the periphery of Israel. There is a dream for any Israelis to bloom the desert, and we strongly wanted to be part of that mission. UBQ is a mission. Our team are embedded in a mission. And part of it is also the social mission of UBQ. The communities around Tselim are truly those that were affected. Most of our employees in the UBQ Tselim plant come from these different communities, Kfar Aza, Nir Oz, Be'eri, all the names that you heard now in the news. Well, we were very much affected by the events of the 7th of October. We lost 2 colleagues. Adar Rosenfeld was shot dead with her husband. They had 2 little twins also with them in the refugee room. They were not shot, not because they thought it was something that you shouldn't do because they killed a lot of kids. It's just that their cry was a very good trap to bring the soldiers to try and save them and then shoot them out. So they were sitting in the salon waiting for soldiers to come in, and that is part of the tragedy of this story. She and her husband passed away, and now these little kids are going to be raised by the grandparents. Then we lost Uri Russo, who was the head engineer of the plant and second plant manager. Uri was defending his family, and he was shot dead. Apparently, they didn't understand that he was shot dead in the house because they said there is a guy here that is shooting, so let's leave this house alone. and that's how he saved his wife and 3 kids.
Oh, because he'd gone, yeah.
Because but the last bullet that was shot from outside killed him.
Mm.
So but they didn't know that the terrorists. Like, they just said, let's not mess with this house. We also had another 19 members in this kibbutzim. So additional 19 members. All of them have been relocated because, of course, these communities were completely destroyed. The houses were burned. Their possessions were taken. And some of them had family, direct family lost. For example, our CTO has a son. He's married, and the woman was shot dead.
Wow.
So we have, and then of course many friends. The communities, those friends are gone. So you can imagine that the first 2 weeks. We were very much involved in supporting our team, giving them all the backing that they needed. I have to say that there was enormous solidarity in the community. You might know that, but yet in addition, we need to take care of each one of them, from their immediate necessities to what will happen next. We're a very connected team of people. And that was the power we had in order to put us back on track. After 2.5 weeks, we asked them all, if the army allows us to come back to the facility, are you willing to start working again? And all of them said yes. Yes, we need to go. We need to continue. Okay, the only way to continue our lives
is to continue
our life.
Right.
And 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks later, the UBQ plant in Selim was back on track. Some of the guys that were relocated could work from a distance. The others, we arranged from them cars and mobility to be able to come to the plant. And if you go today to the plant in Selim, of course, there is some sadness around what happened, but the team is completely committed to continue, and not even that. It's just to grow the business and show that terror that we know better than just holding our lives. So
so the countries really come together and become stronger. In your business, have you seen more efficiency, or kind of like, I'm sure culturally there's more unity? How is that translated into the business? Because you have these, on the one hand, obviously, there's a greater sense of purpose that might be good for the business and good for everyone. On the other hand, you people that are working remotely, not from their homes because don't live in their homes anymore because they're refugees, or they're doing crazy commutes that they wouldn't have done. So overall, how has that affected? I'm just curious, the positive and negative. Now that you're back on working again, how has that affected your business?
So first of all, what we did in parallel to being very close to our team and supporting, giving all anything that they really needed, we were very much in touch with all our stakeholders, investors, the suppliers, our clients, to try and create a community where everyone is aware of what is happening, okay? So we were communicated, me and Albert, my co-CEO, every 3 days we would send a letter to each one of them, a different letter, explaining and stating what was going on in the company. And in a way that also created the bonding and the connection for all of them to be able to support where they needed and to feel the continuity of the business. We were communicating very regularly. And I think that it was strongly appreciated. And the level of support that we got from them was also felt by the team. So the team was showing that they wanted to go back. All our stakeholders were behind us, and those energies were the ones that enabled us just to come back a month later, operating the plant and thinking about the future. Always remembering, of course, the past.
So can I take a step back? You have an accent that sounds familiar to me in my personal life, but maybe not too many Israelis. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Lima, Peru.
From Peru. And there aren't many Olim from Peru, right? So my question is, has the culture of being Peruvian, how has that kind of affected the way your aliyah and in your business? Do you think maybe you have a different perspective on the world that, let's say, a North American or a Sabra Israeli or European wouldn't, or a Mizrahi wouldn't necessarily have?
So the community of the Jewish community of Peru is very small. That is why you don't see too many Olim from Peru. But proportionally, there's a lot of Olim from Peru to the size of the community.
Okay.
So it's a very Zionist community. We were raised, in a very ordered fashion as a community. And when I was 18, I decided I wanted to come to study in Israel. The idea was, if it works out, I'll end up staying because I admire the state of Israel in my heart. And I have to tell you that anyone who comes to Israel because of a decision of coming, not because he's desperate, to escape somewhere. But when you choose to come, in a way, you're taking a very entrepreneurial decision.
That's correct, yeah.
And if you succeed and you become part of this, and then you start feeling that you can make it even further. That is why I think that in many cases, immigrants have a lot of beautiful stories all over the place.
Yeah, that's exactly. I agree with you. Yeah, they often do. You have to overcome so much just to get to where you are.
And then you say, okay, so I can move on. I can do more. I can take that spirit, that energy, and create something new. That is in a way the entrepreneurial spirit that I found myself when I came into business. The spirit is of course still Latin American, but I'm a complete Sabra already after so many years.
The army here,
completely,
right?
yeah,
completely,
so
you're Israeli,
completely part of the community, and yet with a very international vision that allows you also to be a citizen of the world, understand that there are different ideas, different ways of doing things, different cultures, and that also helps establish the right connections when you move further into a company that wants to establish internationally. So everything was in a way built to happen.
So let's move over to the business side of UBQ. How does the economics work? Do you have, since you're green technology, do you get grants or tax incentives from different governments? Is it economical? Because it seems like so much work and technology goes into it. Sometimes maybe just creating things from economies of scale of plastics or something. Why would they use your product? So maybe if we can talk a little bit about the business and how you make it economical. Because at the end of the day, if it's not economical, but usually green technology doesn't move, right? That's where we're going to see the breaking point for electric cars. As they become more and more economical, we'll expect to see it to take off.
Exactly. So you're absolutely right. There are very many companies that come with extraordinary services or products that cost twice or three times more, and yet they don't become a household name because it's impossible for people to pay those differences. One of the central elements of developing this technology was to make it as efficient as it can be, because you need to catch up with 100 years of plastics where they have been creating efficiencies along the way and economies of scale to a level where they're extremely in the edge of technology. I mean, they cannot do even a little more to drop the prices. Now you're coming with a new technology, 0 years, zero knowledge in terms of the market. The beauty of UBQ is that we start with a raw material that they pay us to take it. Mm-hmm. So that is a very convenient way of starting a business, not to pay for your feedstock, but to get paid for it, okay? Then creating a very, very solid and efficient process where we will remove these abrasive materials like metals and minerals and drop a little of the moisture of the waste because it comes very wet, okay? And then a process technology of conversion where we take the waste and pass it on through a reaction process where at the end of the day you get this plastic pellet that we will ship to the plastic industry to create sustainable, climate positive, circular products. Well, that is where the secret was, how to create that process so efficiently that we can come to the market at a competitive price. And that's what we achieved. So UBQ today.
When did you achieve the point where you became competitive in price? And
Look,
maybe you can talk about what was that one main technology that was hard for you to be able to crack in order for you to bring the price down so dramatically.
There was no one thing.
It was working all the systems.
It was working
all
on
the
It's like you have a journey full of bridges that you need to cross.
right.
And it might happen that there is one bridge that is impossible to cross and you don't. And it might happen that you think that there is a bridge that is impossible to cross. But then
You get there.
you get there and you think, wait, how I circumvent this? And in this space, I think that here's where you have the entrepreneurial spirit of this group. When we didn't know anything or we needed some assistance, and even our top scientists couldn't break it, we would consult the academy, we would consult institutes, we would consult companies. And the ecosystem in Israel allows you to move very fast and very high.
Do you want to talk about that actually?
Yes, of course.
Why is it that you're able to move so fast? In Israel in particular?
Yeah, the collaboration in Israel is embedded in the way of life here. People are very solid to each other. Also, when it comes into business, Israelis really like to find solution to things. Then they think about what's in it for them. But first, they want to find a solution. You have a problem, I will solve it for you. And that mentality is truly great. Israelis are problem solvers. They are not afraid of difficulties. They are not afraid of not being successful. They're just there. On the other hand, there is a very high level of professionalism in the academy, in the business sector. So we could pick the best brains. We work with the Weizmann Institute, as I told you, with the Hebrew University, with the Technion, with the Shenkar Institute of Plastic and Rubber.
Who don't you work with?
With Ben Gurion, exactly, with whom we don't. But we also work with some institutes abroad who also give us some angles into things. And of course, for the mechanical parts of the process, we needed our suppliers to help us solve certain issues that we confronted. And as I told you before, working with top-line suppliers that understood the potential of this technology gave us an edge in order to have them put their brains into solving our problem, because at the end of the day, potentially, this could be a new industry and open up a whole new market for them. And actually, that is what happened. So everyone who was involved in the UBQ development is part of this success story and is now, in a way, a stakeholder in the company working with us.
That's cool. So going back to the economics of it, you're competitive. What does that mean? That means the alternative of straight non-recycled plastic. How much more expensive are you?
So when you want to find a thermoplastic material, to create a product, you can either go to a virgin plastic, which is that polymer that just went out from the petrochemical plant, right? A very clean, new, quality material. That's a virgin plastic. An alternative to that virgin plastic is recycled plastics. Typically, you have two recycled type of plastics. One is mechanically recycled, where that end product would be recycled back into what it was, into the material it was before. So for example, take a tray of McDonald's, okay? It used to be polypropylene. It breaks, they can grind it back, right? And take back that plastic and use it as recycled polypropylene to create either that tray or any other product, a hanger, a car part, anything, right? It's a raw material, again. But recycled plastic has a drop in quality. Notwithstanding the drop in quality, since markets really want to use recycled materials because they want to be part of the circular economy, they're willing to pay a very similar price to recycle.
So the price is similar, but the quality is a little bit worse.
A little worse. And then what happens is that in some places there's not much availability of recycled. You can find places or times where recycled plastics are even more expensive than virgin plastics because the demand is so high. People need to use recycled content in order to be able to sell their products. By the way, in Europe today, there is a tendency to oblige companies to use minimum recycled content. For example, in the car industry, it's already 30%, 30%. Packaging, also 30%. So you need to find recycled content and you need to pay. Otherwise, you get a very big fee. So we have the recycling, and then you have the chemical recycling, which is a very high-end way of recycling. It's like taking that used plastic, breaking it down into molecules, and creating a virgin plastic. Problem, 2 or 3 times more expensive than the virgin plastic. So that technology is not yet evolved to the place we need to have. UBQ comes at a price that is in line with the virgins and the recycles. So here you have a menu of choices. Okay, you can use virgin, you can use recycled plastics, and you can use UBQ material. Why would you use UBQ material? It's circular, it's bio-based, it's climate positive. In other words, it saves emissions because we save the landfill waste from making all these big emissions. It's circular, it's highly recyclable, and it's competitive.
Amazing. And how's the quality of the UBQ compared to other recycled?
Compared to the recycled plastics, we're very similar. So we have a huge market to develop.
So let's talk about the challenges of manufacturing first. So, I mean, you had a plant you're in Israel, right, outside of Gaza, in the south. Israel's not really well known for its, let's say, manufacturing or plant. What is it like to build that in Israel first? Is my first question. And then you're expanding to a plant that's much larger to serve Europe in Amsterdam. Maybe you can talk about what lessons you learned that you take there, or do you bring outside help? Or maybe we could start with like Israel's we're not really known for manufacturing. And I think we'll see more of that maybe in the future. I feel. What's your opinion on Israel manufacturing?
Yeah. So look, you're absolutely right. On the other hand, the bridges of collaboration between Israel and other countries are very strong. Luckily, we're next to Europe. The machinery industry in Germany, in Italy, in the Netherlands, in Austria is extremely well advanced. So you had the best of 2 worlds. Here you had the creativity, the dynamity, the originality, the innovation part of it. And we had the collaboration with all these big companies, big suppliers, AAA suppliers, that were willing to bet on UBQ, as I told you before, but we're also willing to adapt all the changes that we were making while we were here. So we have extraordinary engineers here in Israel and scientists working with those engineers abroad, creating something in Tehillim to be able then to expand globally. So it was a great place to begin an innovation. Even though it's an industrial innovation, if you want to scale UBQ, then definitely you have to be closer to the big consumer markets where the big brands would be sitting. And that is why as we completed the development of the technology in Tehillim, we decided to open up this big plant in the Netherlands. As you can imagine, the ecosystem is very strong, this environmental ecosystem, closer to our suppliers, closer to consumer markets. There is a very strong environmental consciousness also in Europe. So the consumer understands and the companies understands, and the waste companies who supply us the materials want to be part of a circular solution. So the ecosystem, just fits. Yeah. Now we are going to be moving next probably to the United States and other places in the world, which we will obviously announce down the road. To create UBQ plants using local waste, right? Serving those markets more locally. And the idea would be really to establish as many UBQ plants as we can to be able to replace as much plastics or oil-based plastics as we can.
Are you basically replacing, in the long term, recycling plants?
No, look, this is
not, because also landfill, because you take trash, too.
Yeah, exactly.
You take everything, so it's not even recycling.
Exactly.
Would you take a little bit from the waste management and a little bit from recycling?
This is a very important question. We are a complement solution to recycling. Why? Because, as you know, recyclers only work with the plastics that are in the waste. And those plastics have to be taken out and recycled, right? So they take as much plastics as they can. They will still leave some plastics in the waste because they cannot pick everything, or because the value of the recyclate is not high and it is not convenient for them. Sometimes HDPE has a good price, sometimes polypropylene has a bad price, so they pick or not pick. But you have also another phenomena in plastics. There are a lot of plastics that are unrecyclable. Why? Because they are multi-layered plastics, and those you cannot recycle. Take a bag, a plastic bag from the supermarket. Yeah. It's unrecyclable. There's no mechanical recycling process that can take that plastic bag and turn it back into plastic, okay? It will go to a landfill, or it will be incinerated, worse. So at the end of the day, after they collected all the plastics, you have all the organics, all the cardboard, and all the paper that was not picked, that is contaminated with the organics and aren't recyclable. You have the mixed plastics that were left. We're sitting after them. So we're not bothering the recyclers. On the contrary, we tell the recyclers, take the plastics, the metal guys take the metals, the cardboard guys take the cardboard. At the end, you will all leave a residual amount of waste, which is significant, that will end up in landfill. That is where UBQ sit. So we're not competing with them. On the contrary, we're complementing the service that they did by taking the valuable materials. We will use the waste of the waste and turn it back into the market. And that is what we call a circular economy that works for everyone.
What can't you recycle?
In the waste?
Yeah.
Everything.
Literally everything.
Yeah. The truth is that the metals and the minerals, they don't participate in the process, in the chemical reaction. But if they're there, the matrix can bond them. But again, for the plastic applications, we cannot afford to have metals and minerals. These are abrasive materials for very delicate machines. So we take them out. And as I told you before, they're returned to the recyclers. We take care of everything else.
Let's talk about revenue. Where does your revenue come? Because, so basically, would you say, how much of it has to do with, let's say, government involvement of trying to push green and incentives, and maybe tax rebates, et cetera? How much comes from demand? Where does your revenue come from?
The business model of UBQ doesn't take into consideration whatsoever any grants or subsidies or taxes or policies to be efficient. UBQ
it's probably the most important thing you said about your business, because that means you're sustainable regardless.
We are sustainable
of government.
Regardless.
So
the reason we need government support is because we want to release capital to expand faster. And the faster we expand, the more waste we use, the more natural resources we're saving, the more carbon emissions we're saving, the more circular solution we're providing the market, the more oil we're saving and all the hazards of processing oil, which create a lot of CO2 and other gases. So I think that it is, the company has a purpose, a business purpose on the one hand, but as I told you before, we as a team and as a company are very much visionaries. We want to make a change, and to make a change, we need support. Otherwise, this will take too many years. And you know what, frankly, the planet doesn't have time. We need to correct all these deficiencies of the last 400 years since the Industrial Revolution. And you sometimes need revolutionary technologies like UBQ to bridge the gap until new technologies will appear down the road to help solve this huge problem. In the meantime, UBQ needs all the support it can.
Amazing. So when did your plant in Amsterdam open yet?
So the plant is in the Netherlands. It's not exactly in Amsterdam. It's in the south, okay? It's closer to Rotterdam.
Oh, okay.
The plant is being commissioned these days. In other words, all the machines are being now tested, and we expect to start producing commercial material in January 2024.
Okay. Okay, right now.
In a month
how much bigger is it than your plant in Israel?
15 times bigger.
Wow. And then, well, that just makes sense, just market, because does Israel buy trash from other neighboring countries?
Trash?
Yeah.
No.
I'm just wondering.
This country produces enormous amounts of trash.
No,
we're drowning in waste as much as all the world is drowning in waste. People tried even to export waste.
Yeah.
Not because they wanted the waste, it's because they wanted to send it to someone else. China was a very good destination in the past.
Yeah, China does that.
The Americans were very happy with China taking their waste.
Yeah.
Today it's impossible. Now they have to live with the problem. And that is why the prices of landfill and incineration have gone to the roof. And new technologies can appear because this all of a sudden there is a market. Before it was so cheap to send it to your neighbor.
Because they had to send empty containers back to China.
Exactly.
So they all, that was the economics because they were a net export. Yeah.
Exactly.
So and now that's changing. But you could
change completely.
Yeah. It could in the last 2 years. It's crazy, right? So 15 times bigger. If you were to open up a plant in America, would it how much geographical area do you try to cover? Let's say in the future, like one for all of continental North America doesn't make sense. You would probably have.
Let me give you the numbers.
Yeah.
The total plastic market in the world is 400 million tons.
Okay.
400 million tons.
It's a lot.
Okay, it's a lot.
There's like 2 billion tons is like all of the trash, right? Something like that.
Trash is 2 billion.
2 billion. That's what I thought. Right.
So if you would convert all the trash into all the plastics, you are still left with trash.
Right.
Okay? So definitely the problem of trash is bigger than the plastic solution. That is why we in UBQ are already thinking about construction. That is why we're developing new generations of UBQ. Today UBQ is well known in the plastic market because we are selling the pellets
right
to companies that will produce trays to McDonald's, to companies that will produce car parts for Mercedes, and Mercedes who produces their own parts as well, to Pepsi, etc., all these big names, and we are of course expanding the list. But we are also in parallel as an innovation company, investing tremendous amounts of efforts in R&D to create new applications for UBQ material. By the way, UBQ now can be 3D printed, something we couldn't do.
Wow.
So the filament of 3D printing is
So wait, if I want to have a 3D printer in my office,
yes.
Right, and I can get UBQ pellets, and I can print pallets, and I can print whatever I want.
You can find the filament already,
right,
produced by a producer, okay,
that's cool.
And make a very green prototype out of your 3D printer. The construction application, bricks, roads, pavements, replacing parts of cement in application. That is the future. So we really went, if you think about it, to the most complicated one. Plastics are very, very, advanced materials. This market is working with top machinery, very delicate processes. Once we conquer that possibility, we find it a little easier maybe to be able to apply this technology into a more massive market like construction. Margins are not definitely going to be the same, of course, but the volumes are going to be huge. And we can then make a difference. We can eventually end with landfills.
Awesome. That'll be cool. Can't wait to see that. Instead of landfills, you'll just send to UBQ plants. How long will it take for your Amsterdam plan to get to capacity?
Typically, industrial plants are scaled over time. You run one line, then you run all the lines. We have 6 lines there. Then you do one shift, second shift, third shift. So over next year, we will get to
full capacity.
Full capacity, yeah.
And then would you think to open up another one in Europe?
We're working already on opening up another one in Europe and to opening up another 1 or 2 in the United States. And we're also exploring other markets. As I told you before, we will announce it, but definitely. These projects take time.
Right.
So we're planting the seeds in different countries to be able in the future to announce more and more UBQ plants.
So most of your money goes into just expanding plants?
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely. The idea is to have as many UBQ plants as we can to create more and more revenue to support the growth. This company, if we want to make a change, we need to invest a lot in expansion efforts, in R&D. And I hope that the markets, as they are evolving into circular economy solutions, efficient technologies, you have to be efficient, you have to be competitive,
right?
You have to come with a value proposition that no one else can really challenge. Those are the ones that are going to be changing the world, and I am sure that we're one of them.
Tato, thank you for changing the world. From Tel Aviv at UBQ. Thanks for joining in, Israel Tech.
Thank you.